Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Brandon, your trusted realtor, and I am here to provide you some real tea. And I'm here with my good friend, Jacques Etienne. Hey, Jacques, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Brandon?
I am doing amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. So, we're going to go ahead and dive in into this particular episode. We're talking about really feelings and emotions as it relates to the process. And so that's what I want to talk to you about because you have this beautiful home. I see this lovely artwork that you have in the background there. And so I want to just talk to you. So give it before we even talk about that, give me some information about you. Where are you from? And in these Americas or not Americas, and then where do you live now?
Okay, so I am originally from New York. I've lived in a couple of different cities. I've lived in New York. I moved to Miami. I was in Miami for 2 years where I did Teach for America. And I
Mm,
lived there for about 2 years. And then after that, I moved to the Atlanta metro area.
okay, and Atlanta's definitely that. If you don't know, for all of you folks out there watching the channel, Atlanta is where I call home. I still have my original 404 number from 11th grade, so shouts out to Atlanta. So how do you like Atlanta? How's life there in Atlanta? No one calls it Hotlanta. So if you're out there, you're gonna put that in the comment section. No one calls it that. So
No one calls it that, yeah. Yeah, Atlanta is like very early 2000s. It's very snap music.
I was about to say 2000. That's very
we,
like
we,
Atlanta Freaknik.
not freak neek. You
Freaknik.
you elevated it.
Elevated it. C'est français. Les Freaknik. Ouais, c'est ça. C'est bien. Très bien.
um, so Atlanta was a tough challenge for me because um, I came here and I'm pretty much still alone. Like
Mhm.
I I have my friends and that's about it. But I'm pretty much alone. In Miami, I had more of a support system because
Okay.
I was doing Teach for America and I was part of a cohort. But
Mhm.
when I made the choice to move out to Atlanta, it was very much a solo decision, just me. Um, and you start to get critical because as a New Yorker, you're just used to so much because New York is such a big city.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's easy to find your niche. Um, Miami was difficult.
Mhm.
Atlanta was difficult. And then on top of that, when we're talking about dating and mating and all that kind of stuff, Atlanta is not for the faint of heart.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. So fair enough. So you've lived in a few different places. You have that New York experience, that fast pace. I did what I lovingly call New York the city of renters. A lot of people call it the city of lights or the city that never sleeps. Because I have my real estate hat on. It's just everyone rents there. Like I'm always amazed how you have so many different places that are rent controlled. And then you have Miami, which is completely different because Miami is like I like to think of like Miami is like Miami, and then there's everything else that makes up Miami. So it's almost like a city farm. Cause I remember being in Miami, and depending on where I was filling up to get gas, and there was a chicken or a rooster, one of them, just like right
Yeah.
there, just at the gas station, and I was like, we're still in Miami proper, but just if you're not like South Beach or something like that, like the demographics change as far as how the housing looks. Did you rent or did you own in Miami?
So in Miami, I rented. Um, it was my first time renting outside of New York.
Oh, okay.
So in New York, I rented. I was I was an RA, so I had free housing for a little bit, and then once I graduated from school, I I lived in a couple different places until I found this really really great apartment in Jackson Heights in New York,
Hmm.
um, and it was about 1,600, 1,650 a month, and I split it with a roommate. And then when I moved to Miami, I was able to find an apartment, a two-bedroom, which I lived with a somebody else who was doing Teach for America, and it was about 1,400 a month. so about $700 each. And that was my first year. And then my second year, I lived in a house in Miami, still renting again. So
How and not to interrupt, just I wanted to ask, how was your experience with Teach for America?
my experience with Teach for America was amazing. It's once you when you're in it, you can sometimes be very critical of the organization, but I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for Teach for America. So, you know, I cannot be too critical of an organization that's done so much for me in my career.
Okay, awesome. So we're talking about Atlanta. We talked about where you lived before, and so now you've made Atlanta home. I always, when people say, where are you from or where home is, I say, wherever you make your mortgage. That's at that point once you make that commitment, right? That's where you live. What made you decide? What made you decide that you wanted to buy a house?
So for me, it sounds a little funny, but when it came to buying a house, I just saw I have to really think of like my friend Tanisha. My friend Tanisha is originally from New York as well,
Mhm.
and her good girlfriend had bought a house, and she was living in her girlfriend's house, and I just saw they made home ownership look accessible for me, and I would go over to Tanisha's friend's house at that time, and then eventually Tanisha bought her own house, and then she just kind of demystified everything for me, and she was like, actually this is easy, you can do this. Here's my mortgage lender situation that you can call, and gave me actual resources to try to start making those steps happen.
Oh, nice. So it was kind of like each one teach one. It was really kind of almost
Yeah.
the very same, like Teach for America, communal type. You saw someone else doing, and they were really able to kind of help you with those initial phases.
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw someone else doing it, right? Is that really what made you decide to do it? Was that the reason you were just like it just demystified the process, so you felt like it was
Well,
easy?
I come from homeowners. So my parents
Okay,
own a house in New York. So I've always been aware of that. So it's nothing that seemed too far away from me. And then also understanding the craziness that goes on with rent prices, that'll make anybody think about home ownership. If you are going to live in a city, for me, I say if you're going to live in a city as long more than 5 years, why not look at buying a property? Even if you decide to leave, there are still arrangements that can be made to help you move on to your next city. But like, why not? Why not? And especially in a city like Atlanta, when I compare my the amount I paid in rent to the amount my mortgage is, it only made sense.
And do you have more space in your house than in your apartment? Maybe that's a silly question, but
Well, my first apartment in Atlanta was in Norcross,
mm,
and I had
it's
a
a nice area.
what's up? Yeah, that's decent. A little further out, but I had about 900 square feet, maybe a little less than 900. Then my second apartment was in Buckhead, but it was a studio apartment and it was 400 square feet. So it was tiny. It was
Mm,
tiny.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I kind of in the back of my mind knew that after I was done with that apartment, I was going to get a house. So that was kind of to light a fire under my, tail to like get out of there. But after a year, that place started feeling claustrophobic. So now
I believe it.
after 400 square feet, everything feels sprawling. So I think I'm about a thousand a thousand square feet now.
Okay, yeah. So that gives you a little bit more elbow room.
Hmm.
That whole artwork right there looks like that would have taken up an entire wall in 400 square feet.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, more liberty there. So as it relates to the process, what was your high and what was your low emotionally?
My high was getting approved the first time.
Hmm.
My low
The first
was,
time? Okay, so talk about that.
so I got approved initially through one mortgage lender, and it was a it was a great feeling, but nobody tells you how fast the process moves right after you get approved. And realtors, no shade, realtors really don't. I don't want to sound. I'm just going to tell you my experience. Realtors
Please.
don't really care about the fact that you got approved. They're on to the next, and they're about securing their bag. So I went to a realtor at the time, and I said, "Hey, I just got a pre-approved," and she's like, "Okay, well, do you have all of these monies lined up and ready to go to continue the process?" And right then and there, I was like, "Wait, I'm still trying to work on the savings part, but my credit is good. All this other stuff is good. Like, why is this not enough?" And that just kind of was just things kind of just stood at a standstill. So that happened. I got pre-approved the first time in June, but pretty much was just kind of no. I got pre-approved in May of last year, but pretty much just stood there in a standstill for about the whole summer because
So because
nobody
you
would.
didn't have any guidance, so you
Yeah,
reached out to a realtor and she was like, oh, "Okay, because you don't have these coins set up." She didn't mention home buyer programs or things
nope.
you work through. Okay, and so that's the first time. Let's talk about the second time.
So the second time, um, I was in Bulldogs with my boyfriend at the time, and he was there with his group of friends, and one of somebody in his circle was a realtor. And I guess it's there's a beauty in when you share like um multiple affinity groups with one person. So we were just able to just talk, and I told him that I was interested in buying a house, and he's like, "I'm a realtor." But I get kind of skeptical because in Atlanta, like that's like everybody saying that they're, I'm a rapper. It's like I'm a realtor. Like everybody's a realtor. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But I got not desperate, but I got to the point where I was just open. So I hit him up and I was like, "Hey, um, you know, I'm approved for this amount. Can you help me with showing some houses? Can we talk about it?" And he had the mindset that I needed at the time because he just right away said, "Yeah, we're gonna make this work, and you're gonna get this house, and you don't worry." Because he's like, and his automatic thing was, "I've been able to get people houses without them having to, you know, pull into their own pocket." And I was like, "Really now?"
I'm here for that. I'm here. Give me this.
Yes, yes. So, and
So
that's
it
how
was a
it
better
happened.
experience. So let me pause you real quick there. So this was a really good example of the types of realtor because I think you kind of hit a really good point that I like to hammer home to folks that anyone can be a realtor, but a real estate agent, but everyone's not a realtor. And just because you're a real estate agent, you have your license, doesn't mean you're a realtor and that you have the necessary skills and the really the attitude, right? The chutzpah that's needed to help people challenge or to navigate challenging situations such as trying to find financing as it relates to purchasing a home. In your mind, what you felt like comparing those two situations, like hindsight's 2020, and you had to give yourself advice to say, I'm looking for a realtor. This is what I'm going to look for in the type of realtor. What would you tell yourself?
I would say find somebody that you're comfortable with. So for me, being a gay black man, I think it was really helpful to deal with another gay black man. So find somebody that you're comfortable with, maybe, and not to say like, oh, go out and look for somebody like that. I so happen to have met somebody who I shared those qualities with, but find somebody you're comfortable with, because what you don't realize is you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person throughout the whole home buying process.
Mhm.
You're going to, for me was I was seeing, Raheem all the time after work.
Okay, shouts
So
out to Raheem.
yes, yes. So I was seeing him all the time after work. And you just you really start to develop a relationship with that person. They start to understand what you like, what you're not looking for. They start to understand your motivation. Um, and then you just got to push back a little bit too, because at the end of the day, they're trying to make, this is capitalism. So they're trying to make their coin. So sometimes they will show you houses and you're like, you're looking, these numbers seem so out of your grasp, or you don't quite understand,
Mhm.
and you don't know what your monthly payment is going to be necessarily until you get to the table. So I had to also go back and forth with Raheem and sort of be like, Raheem, it's even though my top, it says I'm approved for 160, I don't want to spend 160,000, $160,000 a year.
Mhm.
I'm not a year, in total for
Yeah.
I don't want to use my whole entire
Blown them out.
amount. Right. I don't, because you're also trying to think about how much you're going to be paying a month, because it's going to be a fraction of that. So you have to be very, very careful. Then you haven't even added your home owner's insurance and taxes and, all these other things.
So, and what I'm also hearing, which is really important, and one of the things I actually talk about in my homebuyer programs or seminars is really breaking down what it is the expectations are. And that's what I'm hearing from you, that um, you had that experience with Raheem that was really good, but what would have elevated that and taken that to the next level is being presented with a loan disclosure. And so the loan disclosure is actually one of those upfront documents you get. There's two documents that the CFPB, the Consumer Federal Protection Bureau, CFPB, that they require homeowners receive. It's a loan disclosure, and that the loan disclosure is an upfront statement that you receive from your lender, and it's a summary of the loan amount, how much you can expect, and and it includes what your monthly payments broken down would be. And then there's also the closing disclosure, which you receive 3 days prior to settlement, and it gives you the opportunity to look at that and do an analysis. And what a lot of people don't know, because their realtor doesn't, either the realtor doesn't know or the realtor doesn't inform them, is that you can at any point in time during the process talk to your settlement company, which are the people who's doing the research and doing the title search, and you can talk to your lender, and they can put together a prelim CD, is what it's called, which is a prelim closing disclosure, and that will give you an estimated breakdown in real time of all of the expenses that they know of to date, and you'll have a sense of what those payments are. So
You see, I didn't even know about that. I did not even know about that.
I know, but at the time I wasn't your realtor and your brother, so it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's okay. But that's great information, and it's good that's why I said that is one additional thing or additional element that would have heightened the experience. You had one experience with a realtor where this person was very transactional. That's more of the transactional realtor that I call, and probably great with exercising a straightforward transaction. And then you have someone who has a little bit more knowledge of the resources and is engaged. And then I have what I call the full spectrum 360 realtor, which is kind of what I consider myself. That's like the doctorate level of realty.
Yes.
But
Come on.
but that is really kind of that high Jedi level where you can look at a situation, analyze it, and really discern effectively ways to create a yes that's the answer at the end of the day. That as a realtor, you're in the industry to create a yes for your client, and that's why one of my mottos is I always want to look for my clients to win the day. Because if I'm making sure that you get the information you need, you're going to feel successful and informed through the process.
Yes, yes. And even within that is a balance. Because one thing that I realize right now is this is not my first and my last house. You
Right.
know, like so there are some things I love about this piece of property, and there's some things that I don't. There are places where I've made mistakes in terms of this. Like one thing that I would say is, you know, Raheem is a great guy, but I trusted a lot in him. And afterward, I found out that I should have gotten paid for my own inspection. I let Raheem sort of um, recommend somebody to me. And that's because I had great trust in him. But when I talked to my other cousin, um, who does some work in real estate, she said, make sure that you pay for your own because with Raheem's friend um, working as the inspector. There was no way you were going to fail that inspection.
Mm.
So there are things that could have been swept under the rug that might creep up later. So that's one piece of advice that I would give, the viewers is, don't invest in invest in finding your own person to do the inspection, an outside party.
And it's really probably the most ethical things. What I do is I keep a list of home inspectors that I've worked with previously that homeowners have used, that I've had a good experience with. And then from that list of home inspectors, I give it to you and I say, hey, this is a list of individuals that I work with. You can research them. Here's their website. If you want a specific point of contact, let me know. I'll give you their name and their phone number so you can contact them. You could even go so far as if your client wants a reference, to let them say, hey, here's your client. And typically I ask with my clients, are you fine if I need to refer you to someone else? If that client wants to talk to to my previous clients and say, hey, how was your experience with this inspection company? Because you are making a significant decision. Another thing that I always recommend is just do like everyone else does, is that if you get somebody in this process, it is a nerve-wracking process, but don't forget the basic things we do. Like when you meet somebody, what's the first thing you do, or a place you need to find? You go straight to the Google and you Google them. And that should always be the first thing that we do in that situation. Never forget kind of those fundamentals,
Yes.
because we get scared in the process. Like I have another friend of mine who's actually going through the same steps. And we were talking right before our call here, and we were talking about his home buying process. And I was like, look, so I have limitations because I'm not licensed in that jurisdiction. And he's like, I am nervous out of my mind. And I'm just like, it's natural. It's a natural nerve-wracking process, but you also don't forget the fundamentals, right? Don't forget that there are certain things we know to do. And that's a really good example to folks listening, is that I would piggyback to what you said, that get the recommendations from your realtor as a starting point, but that shouldn't be the end all be all. And you should research those recommendations, do your due diligence, because it takes a quick 2 or 3 minute, maybe a 5-minute Google search.
And that is excellent advice. But I think going back to what you said about the emotion, sometimes you can just get caught up in the emotions, or you're just trying to, or for me, it was, you need to get a home inspection. Okay. Here's the money. And then after the fact thinking, okay, maybe I should have Googled, but now it's too late because I already paid my money and I'm not going to pay for another home inspection. I can't afford. So like all those things do come to mind.
It, and you know what? I also have, what I like to give my clients is give them a sense of a checklist and a list of expectations. In the contract, for everyone who's listening out there in the YouTube land, your contract will specify timelines that you have to meet. So it will say that your home inspection has to be done in 7 to 10 days. That's the time frame after the contract is signed between both parties that you have to have the home inspection done. It'll say that your appraisal has to be back within 15 or 20, between 15 and 21 days. All of these times are subject and skeptical. are subjective and can be determined by your realtor. They can just put these times on there based on their business practice. And so you can get an idea. And so what I've even done for clients, because most of the clients that I have are Google, I create Google calendars for them. So I'll create a Google Calendar with your property address, because that's going to be your property address, and I'll include the timelines. So you can look on your phone on the Google Calendar, and you'll see between here and here, this is the home inspection. And then you can include a description to know what to expect. And then up front in my buyer presentations, to you agents that are listing, always do the buyer presentation. So even though you're gun-ho and ready to buy a home, which I'm sure that's kind of what you are, there's so many nerves and emotions, is that I think it's the responsibility of the agent to also temper that, and to make sure that as you go in and you're really excited about this process, to make sure that you are aware of the different deadlines and that's clear to you. So giving you some type of guide or template that you can follow, so you know what to expect. Because fun fact, in addition to the home inspection, what a lot of people don't realize as buyers is that the home inspection is not an end-all be-all full-all report. It is a report of things that professional observes. And I'll be making a separate video specifically about home inspection, so be sure to tune into that. But a home inspection is a pure sense of the structural and mechanical defects that are identified with the property. So the scope of a home inspection it's really important to kind of know and to be explained, because the home inspection can also include additional tenants like a radon inspection, a pest inspection, which is separate, or a lead inspection, right? All of those things are different parts of an inspection or tenants thereof. And again, I'll cover those different specific pieces. So yeah, it sounds like I've been talking a lot, but it sounds like you had, okay, so that's the emotion. That was your high. What was your low? Because I interrupted your low.
My high was getting approved the first time, and my low was, my low just was just towards the end of the process of having to resubmit documents over and over and over again. That was hard, because you just kind of get to a point where you feel like, when will it all be over?
It's like lamb chops. This is the song that doesn't end. Yeah. Like you sign these documents electronically, you get the agency agreement and the contract, and you're like, this is 70 pages.
Yeah. And we talked about this before. We talked about like, why did you not let people know what was going on about your home buying process? And I think for me, after going through the first time I got pre-approved and that realtor was less than helpful, I just kind of learned I've just always been that person who just rather move in silence. And especially once you say to people that you're buying a house, everybody's question is, when you buy, when? You know, similar to like my friends who are working on their doctorate, they're like, they don't even want to tell people that they're working on their doctorate or they're towards the end of their coursework or whatever, because everybody's like, so when are you going to graduate? When are you going to be the doctor? And it's just like, chill, like still steps that are taking place. And that's exactly what it is with the house. It's like, you're trying to get it done, but they'll hit you up and text you and be like, well, this piece of paper, we need it ASAP. And this piece of paper, we need this ASAP too. And this piece of paper, we need that ASAP. And then you're sitting there and you're like, in addition to having to teach kids, in addition to having to take care of yourself, in addition to doing all these other things, you got all this paperwork to fill out and refill out. So I can't give you an exact date, Susie, Shirley, Jaquan, as to when I'm going to be purchasing this house. So I'm keeping it, Mom.
Okay. And that actually is a good segue into what my next question was, that you purchased a house and started the process, but you really kept it to yourself. Like you didn't tell your friends, or you told people, I think, that were probably immediately involved. And that really kind of goes to it is, was it that initial fear, especially dealing with that pre-approval process and dealing with that realtor? So it's a matter of those experiences shaped how you would react or what you were willing to disclose to other people.
Yeah, like definitely the that prior experience, and then also just realizing that the way that life works, things can be things can be done in a gone in a matter of seconds. So in a way for me not to get my hopes up too much, let me just go step by step. And sometimes for me, it's better for me to just go step by step. So you want me to fill out this paperwork? You want me to wire this money? Let me do all of these individual activities to get to the goal. But if the goal is I'm gonna buy a house, I'm gonna buy a house, I'm gonna drive myself crazy with that. But if you just give me one thing, go wire this money. Okay. Today I went to the bank and I wired the money. Fill out this piece of paper. Okay. Today I fill out this piece of paper. Just breaking it step by step. Because I'm a naturally anxious person, but for me, just doing those steps was helpful.
You know what? That's good to hear. So I would have a follow-up question for you. Do you feel that letting people know and having all of those different voices would have heightened your anxiety or
Oh
played?
yeah. Oh yeah.
There would have been. I fear there's always a lot of people who want to give you advice or maybe want to go on the showing. I find that a lot of times that people will come and they'll come with an entourage.
And even now, like that's another thing too. Like even now, after I purchased the house, everybody still has an opinion. Well, you could have done better with this, or you could have done better with that. And I'm like, and you, I guess that's kind of like it is what it is. Like opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one. So it is what it is. But yes, everybody does have an opinion. And I'm okay right now with having hearing the opinions now because at the end of the day, I gotta be here.
Mhm.
My name is on this.
Have you found that a lot of times the opinion comes from people who are still renting? Not to be shady, but it's like you don't even know the level of trepidation, and because when I bought my very first house, I was like, "You are a real estate agent. Why are you having these emotions?" And I was talking to my lender, and I was like, and she was like, "Brandon, you've done this before with other people. You know that. You know what the next step is." And I was like, "I know, but I don't want to make that kind of commitment." Like, so it's just like, and then people who come around, they're like, "Oh, well, this could be this and this could be that." And you're like, "Sir and or ma'am, what's your address?"
Listen, I just don't want to. I don't want to curse on your platform, but you know what I mean. But it definitely people do have a lot of opinions, but at the end of the day, I think you just have to take pride in the step that you are willing to take, and just when you go to, I went to a NACA meeting initially, and when you go to a NACA meeting and you see the amount of people who want to buy a house, just be supportive of somebody. If somebody's going through a home buying process, be supportive of that person. Because when I went to that NACA meeting and I saw the amount of Black and brown people, even white people who are trying to find a way to become homeowners, it's not easy. Support people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a piece of information, help them. Like I went to a NACA meeting with a friend. I soon realized that NACA was not for me because I was like, oh, my realtor wants all this paperwork and then you want all this paperwork too? Oh no, I'm gonna mess up. So Georgia Dream was most effective for me.
Now tell us about Georgia Dream. Get us like the Twitter version of Georgia Dream.
Georgia Dream is basically you take a brief online class And then after you take your brief online class, you give that information to your lender, and your lender will make it happen. And basically, they give you money towards buying a house. It comes in the form of a loan. And technically, if you break the stipulations of the Georgia Dream um, situation, whatever stipulations they have, if you break those stipulations, you have to pay the money back. But it's free money.
So, how long do you have to? So, typically with those process, they have like a rider in the process or an amendment that says that if you agree to take this money, it is, interest free essentially, or whatever the arrangement is, and you have to or you don't have to make payments on it, or you have to pay a certain amount at the end of the year. But you also have to have an agreement where you would stay in the property for X number of years. Do you know what the time frame? How long do you
I
have
think it's about 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there every year, is there a reduction in the amount that you have to pay of the principal balance? Looking at
I'm
me.
not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. We might have to look over it together.
So, and
We might
that's
have to look
fair.
over it together.
So what I'm going to do, guys, is there'll be a link down in the comment section from the Google as it relates to the Georgia Dream. I'm not a licensed agent in Atlanta, but you can always go to the Google and find it, and I'll make it easy by including it. So that sounds like a good program. You also mentioned that you were a teacher. Did you leverage any benefits for being a teacher in Atlanta?
So you cannot. Well, I don't know about other places, but in Georgia, you cannot bundle things.
Okay.
So you cannot be a part of NACA and then on top of that Georgia Dream and then on top of that Invest in Atlanta and then on top of that, like there are so many different programs, but you cannot couple them. So Georgia Dream took into consideration that I was a teacher, and I think that affected the amount of money they gave me.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot couple all of these great programs together.
Okay.
You got to pick one.
Okay. And see, that's one really good thing to know, that if you're in Atlanta. In DC, on the other hand, if you are in the DC region, Maryland, and even in Virginia, you can what we call stacking. You can stack those programs or those different programs on top of each other and be able to leverage them, including stacking them with national programs like FHA. So very good to know. Yeah, you said a lot. Oh, yeah. So I want to shift and talk to you about your experience now as a homeowner, and you talked about just making that decision, and knowing that this is your first home and not your forever home. How do you find just your overall, like your emotions and your feelings about owning a property and owning your own space, versus the feelings that you had kind of day to day as a renter?
So the only thing that kind of gives me fear is when that first thing goes wrong with your house and you have to sort of handle it yourself. For me, it happened early on because a house is just like a new toy. You have to understand the nuts and bolts about how things work. So one of the issues I was having was turning on the heat. In the furnace, and then the furnace started to like create this water, and what was creating this water, and thank God I had home insurance, because I think I had to pay maybe about $80 twice, because they had to come out twice, which in the long run is not a bad idea because these things are expensive. So that is the only thing. So you just want to make sure that you just make fiscally good decisions. If you are a saver, make sure that you save. And if you have good credit, make sure you have that one credit card that is just devoted to emergencies. Like when your parents talked about like, this is an emergency, like if all of a sudden something was to like, knock on wood, happen, you can whip out that credit card and it's like, okay, the water for some reason is not working, you need water. Hello. So you can go ahead and take care of that.
Yeah. No, that's really good to know. And it's good that you mentioned that you had a home warranty because home warranties are powerful, powerful programs, and everyone, regardless of whether you are a first time home buyer or you already have a home, like you can leverage at any point in time, call a home warranty company and say, hey, I want to add a home warranty. If you already have a property, usually it's about a 30-day delay period, and they have different policies. They will cover major structural things like replacing HVACs, all the way down to just like simple mechanical stuff. If you are just so inclined to have someone come out and like do, light bulb repair, or if you have issues wrong with your refrigerator, they'll come out and do that work too, right? Because you're right, right? You're everything in your house is yours. You own it. Um, you own all of that, and so it's as the person who owns all of that, you're responsible for all those bits and pieces and making sure that they run properly. And there's no one. I think that's one of the realities of home ownership, and I'm glad you mentioned this. Or we can pivot to this point, which is there are going to be costs as it relates to living and owning that house. And you don't just get in and everything stays nice like it did day one. You have to do certain maintenance and upkeep. And part of that is making sure you have the right plan in place and the right information to get things like a home warranty to protect your investment, right? Because that's the name of the game. Because this is not your forever home. So you want to protect it so that way when you get ready to sell it, you can get more than what you pay for it out of, at least what you pay for or more.
And that's the beauty of home ownership is every little thing that I do to improve this space is only going to benefit me.
Oh yeah.
So I have major plans to like, change the AC, to change the furnace, to I have some there is some beautification work that needs to happen in the backyard. I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna do that. But at the end of the day, I know that whatever changes I make are gonna come back to my pocket. Like I added an Amazon key,
Hmm.
and that is perfect. Because I do live in a neighborhood that is going through gentrification, so there are a lot of porch pirates who like to steal things, but that is something that's going to benefit the house forever, or as long as Jeff Bezos is still out here, stealing people's money, you know. So can we say that?
Yep, you said what you want to say. As long as you
Okay.
So yeah, and that's a really great point is being mindful, being diligent, and those things that you do for your property are going to, unlike as a renter, there's nothing that you can do to that space that will enhance it when you give those keys back. But almost not everything, but just about everything that you can do to enhance your space. Now, if you put in real ugly, and let's just keep it real, if you put in some ugly decor or things that are just don't make any sense to the property and it's just for your own personal preference, that might not result in dividends. But if you clean up the landscaping and you make it beautiful, maybe if you put an outdoor patio out there or add in a gazebo, if you have the backyard space, if you have weeds there and you're cleaning up weeds, I'm doing a whole bit where I'm cleaning up the landscaping on my property to get rid of the weeds and adding in a shed. But those little things, even adding in a fence in the backyard, if you don't have it, it'll create privacy for you in the short term and you can enjoy it. But when you go to resell your property, it'll add value because someone else who sees it will see the value. Even I see kind of in the corner there, the security system that you have put in, that'll add value because someone will come to the property when you decide to resell it or to rent it and they'll say, oh, this is already done. And we live in such an age where if there's an improvement or enhancement that's already done, that Amazon key lock, it's there and it's already done. People are going to be willing to pay for it a little bit more for it or pay a premium for it because you already did that work.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really great example of the power of home ownership and how that it's essentially like forced savings because either when you get ready to, if you want to sell the property, you have the money then, or if you ever were to do a home equity line of credit and take money out based on like the appraised value, which is what I personally recommend, then it's like a revolving credit card. The interest rate is lower than using a standard credit card, but you can't do that. You can't get a home equity line of credit if you don't own a home. But because you make these improvements, now you can say, man, now my house is now valued at $180,000, $20,000 more than what I paid for it. And I can maybe get a home equity line of credit later down the line and do some kind of capital improvements to the property. Maybe you want to add some things, add an fence in the front yard, and that'll benefit you in the long term. Or benefit you, especially when you go to resell it. So yeah, great examples of how you have to be proactive and have a plan. And home warranty helps you with that. Now, how do you take care of like handyman, like basic repairs? Do you leverage the home warranty company for that, or do you have you got a person?
I talk to friends who are homeowners, and they teach me. And sometimes it's, please help me do this. Here's a bottle of wine. So it's all about that.
Ask so learn from your network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And once you meet one homeowner, you generally will meet others, and then you commiserate about owning a home.
And people are willing to help you.
Yeah.
Nobody who's your friend really wants you to see you fail at this.
Yeah, very true. Have you found that Home Depot is your new best friend?
No, because I'm going to go there and spend too much money. So, yeah. Mm-mm.
But do you find that you go more often than you did when you were a renter?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay, what store do you find yourself as a homeowner visiting the most often?
Honestly, I've always been an Amazon person.
And
okay. So even when it comes to little things, like I needed a new shower head, I got that from Amazon. Or you'd be surprised, even Instagram too. Like you
buy stuff from Instagram?
I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I tried to mount my own TV. It did not work. Instagram heard me talking about mounting a TV. Then it started coming up in my advertisements. And yeah.
Wait, how did Instagram hear you talking about mounting a TV?
These devices listen to us.
Oh.
If you talk like, let's say you're talking about
I don't like
going to Hawaii with your boo, you will start to notice that on your Instagram advertisements, Hawaii advertisements will pop up.
I don't like that. Like I had to unplug the Alexa because I was on a FaceTime with someone, and he had said her name because he wanted to check his notifications, and then mine started talking, and I was like, that you do too much. Like you listening too much, and I don't like that. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm. They be listening.
I don't like that. All right. So that's awesome. So, all right. So no particular store, Amazon. I am getting more into shopping at Amazon because I'll find that I'll buy something at like Home Depot or Lowe's. And then when I get it home and I'm looking and I'm like, I wonder if I can find like this in bulk in Amazon. And that's kind of like my go-to because I don't have a Costco membership or BJ's. Oh. I'm like, So I got like 100 landscaping pins. Because like I said, I'm doing some landscaping stuff to get rid of some weeds. So I put some landscape fabric down. And I was like, oh, good. I can do the side where the shed is. Anyways, fun stuff. All right. So I want to shift again to kind of the end of the segment, which is what I call the lightning round. And in the lightning round, I'd like to just toss out words as it relates to your house or things that come in your house and get your initial reaction to it as what they make you feel, right? Based on your emotion and your experience as a homeowner, right? So you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. First word, yard work.
Pay somebody.
Entertaining.
Love it.
Furniture.
Offer up.
Renovations.
Not now.
Location.
Think long term.
Renting.
Um, sorry to that man.
Bedroom.
Three.
Okay, good. All right, perfect. All right, Jacques. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us today on the Real T DMV. Even though you are not MDMV, your experience was vital to the process and to informing everyone that's watching. Everyone tune in for the next time for the next great interview and the next great virtual tour. And just basically make sure you subscribe so you can stay in tuned and tuned in to all the latest and greatest information, because at the end of the day, I'm your trusted realtor. I'm your friend, you're my friend, and we're friends together. Take care.
Look over there.